Good morning, everybody. So today we're going to do another comfort meal. I'm going to show you guys how to make an awesome, simple vegetable soup. Got a great recipe here. Doesn't take too long. We're going to go in the grocery store. I'm going to show you what you'll need, and let's get to it. Also, if you like this video, or if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe down below. Give us a big thumbs up. Really helps us out. One nice thing about this burger on that, they have a Starbucks in here, so I was able to get some coffee. So moving on to the first ingredient, celery. Okay, so you want to get a full, fresh thing of celery. Got our celery there. This is going to be the only item that I'm going to buy in the fresh produce. Next thing you're going to want to get is beef for stew. So sirloin tips, basically. This is a big important ingredient to making vegetable soup. Very delicious. So I guess the correct terminology for this would be beef vegetable soup. 3 canned goods you're going to need. One of them here is fresh cut green beans. 1 can of whole kernel corn. And you want to get a can of sweet peas. So we got our corn, sweet peas, and cut green beans. Honestly, I like the Del Monte version better. I don't know why. I feel Green Giant is just as good, but I've been using Del Monte lately, and they're absolutely delicious. But those are the 3 canned goods that you need of vegetables: corn, peas, and green beans. And while you're in the canned vegetable aisle, you're going to need to pick up a can of beef broth. I usually get the Swanson. Also with the beef broth, I usually get the 50% less sodium. You can use the regular, but I like to use a little less sodium. Also for this recipe that I use 1 can of Hunt's tomato sauce. So you'll need a can of Hunt's tomato sauce. Okay, so after you're done with the canned good aisle, everything we got with the canned goods, you want to come over to where the V8 juice is. Now, I get the Kroger. I actually like this one better than the V8, but V8 is just as good. It's a little more expensive, but you can use the V8 if you don't have a Kroger in your area. But I'll tell you what, Kroger's 100% vegetable juice. I feel like this is almost the magic of this recipe, but V8 works just as good. And again, they have all different kinds of different types of V8 juice. Even the Kroger brand has different kinds. You want to make sure that you get the 100% vegetable juice. Either one, but 100% vegetable juice. Okay guys, we're back home. We got all the ingredients for the vegetable soup. First off, we're going to want to cook the meat first. So we're going to take the meat out and we're going to cut as much fat off of it as we can. We're going to let the beef cook for about 25 minutes on a light boil in the pot here. You need a pot. And we're going to fill this up. I got a pretty big pot here. Probably fill it up about halfway with water. We're going to bring that to a boil, and then we're going to throw the sirloin tips in. And we're going to let those brown for 25 minutes. So all the other vegetables and stuff, this is going to come later. The first thing we're going to do is boil the meat. We're going to cook the meat about 25 minutes, and we're going to cut the fat off. Some of the fat will burn off as it boils. Don't just get off what you can. We're going to bring our water to a light boil, and we're going to cut off the little pieces of fat here. And also what we're going to do is some of these pieces, they cut this pretty good, but sometimes you'll get some like that have big pieces like this. You want to make sure that you cut those in half. So if they're a little more than an inch, they want to be about this big. They want to be about an inch. Like you can see, this is about 2 inches. So you want to cut these big ones in half. Okay, we have all the meat cut. Didn't have to cut too many pieces. You just want to make sure that if they're really big, that you cut them in half. Sometimes they don't. Usually, they're cut pretty good. You usually don't have to cut too many pieces, but if they're too wide, obviously you're not going to want that in a bowl of soup. Not that big of a deal if you miss 1 or 2 of them. This is something that doesn't have to take too long. You can bring it up to a hard boil and then turn it down a little bit because you're not going to want it to boil like crazy. So you can turn it up high, bring it to a boil, and then turn it back down somewhere in between medium and high, and then put the meat in. Okay, so water's come to a boil. So we turn this down in between medium and high. That'll tone it down just a little bit. And we're about to add the meat. Just meat and water for the first 25 minutes. Okay, so we added all the meat here. And what I'm going to do, just to start it off a little bit, I'm just going to stir it for a minute, just so that it doesn't stick to the bottom right away. You don't have to do this the whole time. Just for a minute when you initially put it in the pot so it doesn't stick. And once it starts to come back up to a boil here, but you're good. You don't have to wait for it to come back to it. Like, it's hot. So once it starts to come back to a boil, the time starts now. So I'll see you in about 25 minutes. Okay, so I wanted to mention, with the celery, we don't dice it up and put it in. We cut it in quarters. I'll show you after I get done cutting it. You can dice it up and add it to your soup and have it with the soup, but we take the celery out of it when it's done. Jess isn't a huge fan of celery, but I need the celery to get the flavor of the soup because this is one of the key ingredients. Also, if you want to, you can get an onion and dice up an onion to put in there. Jessica doesn't like onions, so I gotta improvise. So I've pretty much narrowed this down into a nice, easy beef vegetable soup recipe. Altogether, it takes about an hour and a half. That's including the 25 minutes of the cooking the beef. So what we're going to do now, we're going to open the cans while we're waiting, and we're going to cut up the celery. Okay, so we got our celery cut up. Again, this is the way that I do it. You can have big pieces of celery as long as it's cooking into the soup when we set it up. You can dice these up you want. Like, you can really dice them and just have it in with the soup. But like I said, we like taking the celery out. We just use it for the flavor. So, and you'll need to open up your can of tomato sauce, beef broth, and have your 100% vegetable juice ready to go. Okay, so it's been about 25 minutes. We're going to take the meat and we're going to drain it in the colander. And what I like to do is I just leave the temperature where it's at. You are going to want to clean the pot when you're done, because there'll be some like stuff around the pot. You just want to clean that out. Doesn't have to be perfect. I try to do it as quick as possible. So when I pour in the colander, I usually run a little bit of cold water on the side because it is boiling. Okay, so we got our meat draining. And while it's still on, we're just going to pour the vegetable soup all the way into the pot there. Use the whole bottle. Every last drop. Now we're going to add our Hunt's tomato sauce. Now we add the beef broth. We got that. And now I like to add the meat before I add the celery. Okay, we just added the meat. Now, where you were at the low boil before, you notice that I haven't touched it. I've left it at the same spot that we brought it down to originally. I just added all the meat. Now, we add the celery. Again, you can dice this celery up if you want. We just, we take it out when we're done. We just use it for the flavor. Okay, so when I have all that in here, now the actual vegetables won't go in here to the last 15 minutes. So what we're going to do is this is going to boil for about 40 minutes, 40 to 45 minutes. and that'll cook with the meat and the celery. And again, like I said, if you want to use onion, you can chop up onion and put that in here. I know a lot of people dice up their celery and everything, so you can dice onions and celery and put it in here, but we're just trying to make it as easy as possible. I give it a little stir here, and I'm gonna let this come to a boil, and then we're gonna let it kind of lightly boil for about 45 minutes. So I'll see you guys in 45 minutes. I would just like to point out too that there are a million different ways to make vegetable soup. This is just one that I have found is a quick way to where if you don't want to cook it all day long, this is a fast way that you can make a nice thick hearty vegetable soup. Okay, so it's been about 45 minutes and this is almost done. Now what we're going to do for the last 15 minutes, you want to make sure you get your vegetables ready. Open up the cans, make sure you drain them. We're just going to add in all the vegetables. Which one was that? Oh, the peas. These only have to cook for 15 minutes and you're all done. You can use frozen vegetables too, but I don't know. I think they're better out of the can. Also, you don't have to cook it as long. Okay, all 3 cans are in. Give it a little stir. Sure it's all good and cooking away. Oh my, it looks pretty good. So you just let that cook for another 15 minutes. Turn it off. It's done. If you're doing it the way I do it with the celery, you do want to take like some tongs and just take the celery out and trash it. We don't eat it. It's really, unless you dice it up, it's really not that good. So just take the celery out, set it to the side, let it cool for a minute, and just toss it in the trash. One thing I did not mention, and we weren't sure if we were going to do this or not, but you can get some, I think it's pronounced Ditalinis. These are little tiny noodles. If you put these in at the same time with your vegetables, it takes about 15 minutes for these to boil. Adds a nice little texture. We're going to add this time, not necessary. It adds a nice little texture to it, makes it a little more hearty. Not necessary. I wasn't going to do this originally, but since I am going to do it in this video, I wanted to show you guys what it's going to all look like. And this is the brand name. Also, you do not want to add a whole box. You want to add like a third of this if you're going to add the noodles. You don't want to use a really big noodle. And I'm not going to put too many in there. That's good. Just to add a little bit of texture. Again, wasn't going to do this originally. You can get those at Kroger or pretty much any grocery store. I know a lot of pasta grocery stores have been out of because of the virus going on. Everybody's stocking up on everything, so all the specialty noodles have been pretty much bought up. But if you can find those little Ditalinis, they do go good in this, and this will all be done in 15 minutes. I forgot we even had the noodles. It does add a nice texture. I do recommend it if you can find the noodles. They're hard to find right now. It's about as hard to find as it was toilet paper when the pandemic first started. So if you can get it, cool. If not, absolutely not necessary. This vegetable soup is delicious without it. Also, I will be leaving the recipe down in the video description down below. It'll have all the different ingredients that you will need to make this pot of vegetable soup. I will leave the noodles in the recipe if you want to add that. That's just something a little extra. You don't have to add it. Like I said, it's just fine without it. Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes. I know I said 15, but if you're going to do the noodles, you do want to check the noodles to make sure they're done, which I've had it in here 20 minutes. Noodles are done. Nice and thick. Look at that. Oh yeah. So I just turned it off. If you're going to do it the way where you take the celery out, you want to get you some tongs. And you'll have to move it around a little bit. And just take the pieces out. Set it on a plate. Don't just throw it in the trash because they're boiling hot. So get all the stuff off of it there. And then we'll just remove all the celery. Okay, so we're all done here. As you can see here, nice and thick, delicious vegetable soup. And here, as you can see, this is why I cut the celery so big, so that it makes it easy to pull out of it when it's all said and done. Look at the final product here. Looks pretty tasty. We're going to have to let that cool down for a minute, but that's how you do it, guys. Homemade vegetable soup. Takes about an hour and a half total, and probably have meals for a few days because it cooks quite a few bowls. Okay, well that's going to do it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Awesome meal, nice comfort food. It's supposed to get down to 20 degrees tonight, so this will be something nice for me and Jessica. Like I said, I'll leave the recipe in the video description below. With all that being said, I'm out, and remember, the adventure is out there.